Nigerians have been divided on the choice of who is the best candidate to lead Nigeria as they go to vote on the 25th of February 2023. The BVAS has given some hopes on the sanctity of the ballot and the credibility of our electoral system. Then, the verdict of the Election Petition Tribunal on the Osun governorship election came. What does this mean for the election, which is just 27 days away? Can the BVAS be trusted to deliver credible elections? Who is the best candidate to be Nigeria's next president? In this edition of the Micon podcast, join Seun Okimbaloye with the panelists as they discuss these important issues.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Micon podcast, the 60% of our series. I'm Seun Okimbaloye. Well, I'm pushing this podcast as an alternative to my daily and of course daily show on television, on China's television, and of course on Sundays when you have Sunday politics. And basically what we do is where we engage top policymakers and politicians and hold them accountable on a daily basis. I mean, the conversation is never ending, and this podcast is another avenue to engage younger people on crucial topics in politics, policy, and governance. Now, without sounding like a broken record, the statistics are out there, especially as this election is concerned. The numbers are in favor of the young people, the segment of the population, young Nigerians, must get involved more and more. That is the only way we all can experience the desired change. Today, we are back to weighing our choices. So I ask the question again, who is best to lead Nigeria in 2023? Of course, I'm a Nigerian and I'm entitled to have a say, but as a matter of fact, I am confronted with this question every day. And here is where I come to engage politicians and help the public lay out a few universal principles to guide them. Well, is your candidate a unifier, willing to work with all sides in pursuit of the common good? Is your candidate laying out a broad overview of his policies convincingly and feasibly? Is your preferred candidate in tune with Nigeria's problems, preferring solutions, and will Nigerians see humanity through him? Beyond personal choices and partisan politics, who checks most of the boxes, if not all? Let me also tell you that tonight we're also discussing and ruminating on the impact and prospects of the bimodal accreditation and voting system, the BVAS, which has been touted as a great changer in our electoral process. But the judgment of the election tribunal in Osun governorship election seem to have brought into the fray yet another issue for us to ponder on. Can we trust the BVAS to help give credibility to our election? Well, tonight, I'm not going to be doing the talking. I have my very good friends here who are joining me. Tonight, I'm being joined on the podcast by Rinu Ojuala, a right activist project director at OB NGR. And also we have Ilemana Olnoja, a lawyer and a member of the People's Democratic Party. Also, we have Aliyu Abdul, the National Youth Spokesperson of the Tinubu Shetima Campaign Council, and Mr. Liberals Oshoma, a lawyer and social commentator. Thank you so much indeed, gentlemen and lady, for joining in tonight.
Thank you for having us, Seun.
Yeah, I think ladies first, like they always say. Let me start with Rinu. Rinu, it's good to see you. My first question to you, because this is a question we continue to ask and perhaps have a situation where Nigerians, both young people and old people, will go out. But, you know, we created, I was pushed to do this because I felt there is a need for young people to connect to issues of politics, policy, and governance. They cannot stay on the sidelines any longer, and that's why we're doing this. Now, Rinu, give me your own view about who you think is best. Do you have a person in mind that you want to vote for, and why the choice of such a person?
Yes, thank you very much, Seun, for organizing, these platforms. Straight to your question, yes, I have a candidate who I support to be Nigeria's next president. And that person is a person with competence, character, and capacity, with ability and commitment to solve our issues as a nation. That ticket that represents inclusion, that represents equity, that represents justice, not just for Nigerians, but then for young people, for women, for members of other tribes, for people from diverse religions and lands, and that person is His Excellency Peter Obi.
Interesting. So if you compare Peter Obi, the man you say has all of these qualities, compared to other candidates, why do you think he's better than its competitor in the race?
Well, I think that's a tough one, but I'll try to answer it in some minutes. You see, Peter Obi represents a better future. It represents a possible future than his competitors. I will ask that, or I will ask Nigerians, when you look at all the candidates, what do you see? Do you see competence? Do you see character? Do you see capacity? When you look at Peter Obi and you compare him to his competitors, just like you asked, it represents these three things: competence, character, and capacity. And I'll give you three reasons for that. Nigeria's biggest problem today are the economy, insecurity, and corruption, which the current president, our General Muhammadu Buhari, campaigned on in 2015, and he has failed on every count. And if you look at it very carefully, our country is currently experiencing the spread of insecurity, due to a lack of political will, ineffective security agencies, and a president who is barely visible. And this has given us the image of an ineffective leadership. Nigerians today need a credible, competent, and capable leader who can address our issues. We need a present president, not somebody that will not be, present for more than half of his term. And then we can see the parties that have come severally. They failed to deliver on their campaign promises to fight corruption. They failed to deliver on their campaign promises to secure the country, to stabilize the economy, even to stop university strikes, in more than several years of governance, not to talk of the NSAS protest in 2020. So one of his competitors as well, like you asked, is on record for also blaming victims of the Lekki massacre that happened in 2020. Another counterpart, is famous for paying lip service to situations of public concern. I mean, recently there was a deleted tweet condemning the killing of a female student who was killed in Sokoto. Also, candidates from major parties in Nigeria historically have always chosen running mates from other regions and religions in order to be able to foster a sense of security. His major competitors, Peter Obi's major competitors, do not represent the image of a united Nigeria. And Nigerians have suffered heavily in the hands of bad presidents. We do not need leaders who will further widen our divides. Peter Obi will reduce those divides. Two, before we can begin to solve these issues of insecurity, corruption, joblessness, we can go on and on. We need a visionary and transformational leader. And then it's a process. Just like when you're looking for a job, the first stage is you package your CV, you say, these are my qualifications, and submit it. Then the second stage is when they've looked at your CV, they say, okay, you get a chance of an interview. You now get the opportunity to be able to tell the employer why you think you're the best man for the job, and then they can hire you. Not to forget that the basic tenets of a democracy requires that citizens are to ask questions of their leaders, whether they're in office or they're aspiring to come into office. And then there is an obligation from those leaders to be transparent. If you want to lead anybody, you have to be prepared, to be prepared for an intensive analysis of what you've done, what you're going to do, and what qualifies you to do it. And there cannot be two ways to it. Peter Obi has been speaking at every opportunity he gets to Nigerians, unlike his competitors, who have concluded that they have Nigerians by their throat and that we will vote for them no matter what, regardless what they do, they are going to win. So Nigerians must not make the mistake of thinking that any politicians is too good for their questions or query. Regardless of how attractive the CV or credentials of a politician may be, the citizens must ensure, and that's the basic tenet of a democracy, that we understand who we want to vote for. Before I end, also we need a leader with who is critically and clinically sound, with the right character, skills, attitude, and attribute to turn things around. We do not need candidates who have been sleeping all over campaign meetings. Some of them have even refused to attend debates candidates who are incoherent, speaking in languages we don't understand. That is clearly a disaster in waiting. Those people will not solve the problems of our country.
You're shaking tables. You're shaking tables.
The third one, before I end,
You're shaking tables, Reno, tonight. So, yeah.
We should also ask ourselves, what is motivating all the candidates to run for office? You and I should ask ourselves, is their aim just to become president by force, by fire, or they truly want to serve? Are his competitors, those are Peter Obi's competitors, are they promising a bright future for you and I, for the older generation, for this generation, for the future generation, for you, for your children? Peter Obi represents a bright future, and all people with sound analytical mind can discern what we stand to benefit as a nation through Peter Obi. Thank you.
You've shaken tables, and well, let me allow, because you didn't mention names, and I don't know whether you want to mention this, because this is a platform where Nigerians can, is for the independent mind, so where Nigerians can speak their minds freely. Where should I start from? Is it from Aliyu or from Aliyu? You guys, your party is the ruling party, right? And Reno has said a few things. I mean, of course, without asking, having to ask you, who do you think, who are you voting for? I know that you work for Tinubu and Shetima. Why do you think they are best? These guys are best, or Tinubu is best for Nigeria?
Thank you very much. As a Nigerian, a patriot, an experienced young man who has followed politics in Nigeria since 1992 and have been involved in over a decade actively, I like to say this, that in 2012, a lot of young people, reacted to the hike in fuel price January 1st. And I mean, it brought our attention into how we govern and all of the elements of governance and principles or characters governing us. And it opened our eyes to a lot of things, and we got to understand that we really need to get involved, and we need to examine the principal players in the polity so we can make informed decisions, not on sentiment, but on facts. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the next president of Nigeria, inshallah, it's my choice because his track record, what he stands for. He's one person who has fought for democracy. I mean, as flawed as democratic system or democracy is, it remains the best system of choosing our leaders in any society. And of all the contestants, I don't see, perhaps Showore would come close as the only other person who has fought for democracy in this country, behind my principal, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And between 1999, this Fourth Republic and date, if we go by track record and measure what indices of progressive society is, we understand that he's been the best governor since 1990 till date, not just for what he was able to do within the 8 years, but for his display of vision and his support for a system that ensure continuity, that ensure consistency in values. Lagos is where it is today after almost 24 years of uninterrupted democracy, because he's been able to put a template in place that any person voted into office, cannot perform below a certain level. There are issues concerning our economy, corruption, insecurity, and a whole lot. From his days as a private sector person, either while he was working with multinational auditing firms in America or with Mobil oil company in Nigeria, it's shown how he has distinguished himself as someone who has passion for success, someone who has always consistently looked for ways to improve systems. He believes in building the system and improving it. And while he was governor of Lagos State, all of the challenges that Lagos as a state was faced with at the time, he doesn't run from challenges, and that is why if you look at his political trajectory, he has been very consistent in his progressive ideals from the days of the SDP to AD, AC, ACN to APC. He has been very, very consistent with his values. Not because he has not been faced with challenges within the parties, but he has always worked with others to ensure he overcomes those challenges and deliver either for his party or for his constituency, be it a senatorial zone, a state, or a nation.
So, I mean, the same question I asked Reno. So, compared to his competitors, you think he fares better than them?
All right. I would like to take item by item so that we compare to them. I have just made it clear in terms of democracy, right? For those who have, you can't really understand a system except you have been a part of it long enough. We complain about the state of economy in the country. Everybody mouths about how they want to move us from consumption economy to production. We have factors of production in every economy: the land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. And when we look at all of this, you find out that of the major 4 candidates at the moment, at least 3 of them have been opportune to govern a geographical state for 8 years. 2 consecutively, one had to do one, then come back to do the second. Then one was elected but never sworn in as a governor, but went on to be vice president, for 8 years. And if you look at track records, I've spent about 2 decades in the private sector, so I understand what it is to have a resume. I understand what it is to have references. I understand what it is to be interviewed. I mean, at the interview, we all promise everything we want to promise. But there are 2 things that employers must look at: your competence as put down in your resume, then words of commendation from your referees. And that's why reference is very important. My candidate's antecedent speaks volume. He's a long-term project person. He has a vision for a long term, for both short, mid, and long term, and he has put in place processes, activities that will ensure success at every stage. Unlike the other candidate, he has never had to run away from his own political party just because he's faced by challenges. He's always muzzled it through. I mean, we all agree that we are in a troubled nation. Nigeria is a difficult country. I mean, we are blessed. It's blessed with gifted individuals who all feel they have one particular right or the other. So if you're going to have a manager, hire a manager, you must be able to hire a manager who has been through the fire and back, who knows how to manage tough things. And he has shown through his experience.
Let me allow Ilemana to come in here. Ilemana, you're an Atiku man.
Straight away. Straight away.
There have been shades that have been thrown in this space today. Reno said the candidate she's voting for is more competent, and we need to ask about competence. There are those who have said some people need to come up and not to run away from their political parties. So why is your candidate best for Nigeria?
It is very simple. Very simple. If we put the context of where Nigeria stands now and where Nigeria stood in 1999, the answer is very easy to reach, that without doubt, Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, is the best suited to lead Nigeria in a post-Buhari era. We must remember that context. The context of a post-Buhari era being one that so closely mirrors where Nigeria stood on May 28, 1999. Where did Nigeria stand on that date? We were a country that was terribly in debt. We didn't even know the extent of the debt that we owed. We didn't know who we owed. We didn't know how much we owed. We didn't know what the monies were used for. We were an international pariah. We had been excommunicated from the Committee of Nations on account of Nigeria's militocracy at the time. We were an economic wasteland. We were producing very little. We were unable to feed our homes, our children, our aged. We were unable to cater for anybody. We had academic institutions that had been run down. We had, it was an economy that nobody could speak about. And so many other things. We had healthcare systems that didn't function. We had educational systems that existed only on paper, and so on and so forth. We're coming off some of the worst years. And at the time, nobody ever believed that Nigeria could be more badly run than it had been run by the military. And so we elected two people, President Olusegun Obasanjo and his Vice President Atiku Abubakar. And then we put them in charge of manning the ship and stabilizing Nigeria into a proper economy, into a proper country. Anybody who takes an analysis of that time will see that we just have a worse shape, a worse extent of where we were in 1999. Now, I'll give you a couple of things that immediately happened when government came into power in 1999, starting with GDP growth. Our GDP in 1999 was 0.56%. 99. 2000, there was a jump of more than 4%. Our GDP grew in the year 2000 by 5%. In 2001, our GDP grew by 5.6%, I think it was. In 2002, our GDP grew by 15%. In 2003, there was a little slump, but it still grew by 7.96%. 2004, 9.6%. What that lays out for you is, first and foremost, a person who understands how to grow a country's economy and to create wealth on a generational level. Atiku Abubakar, at the time, as Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, served as Nigeria's chairman of the National Economic Council. And everybody who knows the politics of that era knows that in the first 4 years, at the very least, of the Obasanjo administration was simply responsible for providing economic direction for the country. So when we speak about track record, there is economically, here is verifiable track record, and I like to be factual.
So compared to other, like the same question,
none of these other people have been involved in growing an economy and in pushing macroeconomic policies and implementing that sort of creation of wealth at a generational level, at our national level. None of these three other people have been. Only one. Atiku Abubakar is the only candidate who's been involved at that level. Then let's talk about reforms. Things that existed then that didn't exist then, that they very quickly put into place. You know, things like the Public Procurement Act, our telecom sector reforms, our banking sector reforms, reforms in the education sector that included, you know, the passing of, you know, a legislation of the UBEC Act to make sure that our children get a minimum level of education. The passage of the NHIS Act to make sure that we have health insurance schemes. The passage of our Pension Reform Act to make sure that our pensions payable to our old are secure and can be deployed as investments for various things. So the point there being that we now, in addition to somebody who understands economic growth, we now have a person who understands reforms. Right? So that, hold on, all the other people have that. No.
You know, the one thing that I want
to be able to do two things. I want to be able to tell why my candidate, and then I want to be able to tell you why he's better than other candidates. And the other two people who spoke before me had the opportunity.
They did. I mean,
okay. So let me just go on.
The opportunity. But so let me just go. You're making it look like it's only your candidate that has the CV.
No, well, I think I wasn't called there to speak about anybody else's CV. I'm just here to speak about his.
Please go ahead.
Okay.
It's taking you the whole day to be able to talk about your candidate.
I'll soon finish. When we finish with that, we can now talk about. So I've spoken about somebody who understands reforms. I've spoken about somebody who understands wealth generation, job creation, and all of that. Let me also now speak about somebody who understands debt. Nigeria is we're at our most indebted that we have ever been in our national history. It was my candidate who shortly after they got into office, did the trip to the World Bank, to a World Bank conference in New York, where he instigated the process that brought NY on board, and then instigated the process that set up the Debt Management Office, right? It is the reason why, if you read the Debt Management Office Act, the Debt Management Office Establishment Act, in Section 2, you will see that the Debt Management Office is domiciled in the office of the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, simply because he kickstarted that process and was responsible for the establishment. When we put all of these things into place, it shows you a person who has a track record and who has an understanding of preferring the kind of solutions that Nigeria needs at this time. Why should you not be voting the other two people? And I'll tell you very straight away. You should not be voting the other two people, because in spite of
there are no two persons on the
I think
there are 18 of them.
Okay, there are 18. I'll be talking about, if we're being realistic, there are only three other people that are in the race. Let's be realistic.
Really?
There are only three other people. And so let's cut all of that out. Yeah? If you should not be voting for any of the other three people for a number of reasons. One, my candidate is the only candidate that at various points of our national history, all three other candidates have campaigned for and asked that he should be voted for President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In 2007, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu campaigned for my candidate and said he's the best to lead Nigeria after Obasanjo. In 2000, between then and now, we've had instances where Alhaji Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, while he served as a governor in PDP, while he served as a minister of defense, attested to my candidate's suitability, to his excellent demeanor, character, capacity, and content to lead the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. Peter Obi, in 2019, the last election, spent a considerable amount of time telling the Nigerian populace how my candidate is the most prepared to lead Nigeria, and how my candidate will go from policy formulation, will not go to policy formulation, because he's already done all the formulation of policy.
Bring in
and then go
on Twitter
straight
Spaces. Just a moment. I know Danjuma is ready to speak on Twitter Spaces. We get reactions from people based on what we're discussing. Don't forget, we still have Barrister Liberus Oshoma, who is a lawyer and social commentator. He'll be weighing in on some of these issues, and definitely at some point he will be telling us whether or not we can trust the BVAS and ahead of the 2023 election. Let me bring in Danjuma. Danjuma, quickly, what's your own opinion or perspective on the conversation we've been having? Danjuma, if you can unmute and speak. Danjuma is on Twitter Spaces. All right. If Danjuma is not ready, Mark, if you're ready, please, you can go. Is Mark ready?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Mark. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, give us your own intervention quickly.
Yeah, my intervention is that since on Friday, it brought a lot of concerns to everyone, really. The impression we had about BVAS was that it's going to be a deal breaker, and that was why many of us who, some have not even voted before because of the system. Some of us have been involved in INEC activities in detail. So when BVAS came up, we were very sure that this will be the deal breaker. It will be something that will assist, at least transparency in the votes, count number of people who vote actually. But with the rulings on Friday, it brought a lot of concern. I know there are a lot of technicalities. I understand the PDP chap is going to court for verification, but it brings a lot of concern. My question is, what was the consideration of the judge from the INEC Council in the matter? What was their explanation for the polls that were that was said to be cancelled. What was their explanation?
All right.
Considering BVAS, finish.
All right, we'll
So
be
that
aligned.
was
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much, Mark. Mark is actually talking about the BVAS matter, which we will take on now. Barrister Liberos Oshoma is with us. Mr. Oshoma, you've heard some of the speakers right here on the podcast, what they've said about the candidates. But most importantly, the reason for your invitation on this is to get your expert opinion on the judgment and the outcome of the tribunal in Osun State. But I know you have, because as a citizen of Nigeria, you also have your own views on who is best to lead Nigeria. And I just want this to be like a family conversation. So if you can quickly tell us, what are your own views about how this election is panning out? And it's just about 28 days to the election, or 27 days. And it's looking like the campaigns are shaping up. But as there being, because in a long time, this is perhaps the first time in a long time that it's difficult to tell who is going to win the election. But how do you see things panning out?
Sean, quickly, I must say, all of these are campaign slogans and promises. We have, I'm too old to be carried away with all of these plenty promises and slogans.
Your beard shows as much that you're an old man.
I have seen many since 1999. In 1999, we said Obasanjo is coming with experience, you know, a retired military man who has gone to prison. He's seen suffering. He told us power failure would be a thing of the past in 200 days. And he got into office. He said he didn't know the problem was this enormous. And then they spent 16 billion giving us darkness. Atiku was there also. They succeeded in selling almost all their national assets from Nigerian Airways, Delta Steel Company, Ajakuta Steel Company, you know, what do you call it, iron ore mining company. The rolling mills in Katsina, rolling mills in Oshobo, and all of that, are shipping lines. All of them to date, none is working. And so also quickly, that government at the end of the day came, did theirs and left. Bola met Tinubu, the same thing in 2015, went into an alliance with strange bedfellows, went around the country campaigning, telling us that Buhari was the next thing to come and that he was going to clean the urgent table and he was going to fight corruption. And Buhari came. Instead of hitting the ground running, he was running away from the ground. And now Peter Obi is coming to make the same promises. He would turn Nigeria from consumption to production. For me, I look at the indices. Where has he done it before? He has never done it anywhere. And even in Anambra, he didn't do it. Even when he was globetrotting with Jonathan, he didn't do it. And so compare with the indices on ground, there is basically nothing to show that this is going to be a reality. So they all end up and add up as campaign promises. That said, why is it that every government that comes, you know, perform worse than the other? It is not because the people are bad. It is not because the government just want to be bad. The structure is defective. The structure is inherently bad. And so Nigeria is the only country you run with this kind of structure and you expect it to move. It will not move. There's no hard and fast rule to it. APC campaigned with it. We are going to restructure Nigeria, even set up a committee headed by Arafat, and then they swept it under the carpet. Atiku now is, you know, window dressing it, using it to buy votes. Peter Obi is even not talking about it at all. Tinubu is not talking about it again because APC has buried it. So all that said, for me, I am not expecting anything from whoever wins the election. All of them are just, you know, campaign promises and slogans. And so nothing will come out of it, except we insist that even before the election, the National Assembly just sent a constitutional amendment, you know, document to the State House of Assembly. Let us begin to ask and insist that restructuring and devolution of power be included in this document. That is when we now begin to get Nigeria right. Remember, Aguiyi Ironsin was killed for the same thing that we are insisting that Nigeria must enjoy today. Aguiyi Ironsin was killed for unifying the country under one unitary system of government. But today, we are practicing a federal system of government cloaked in a unitary system of government. That is why there's so much insecurity. That is why there's so much debt. That is why you have the crisis you have in Osun, for example. Now the only government that is available is politics. Look at, I will now quietly go into what happened in Osun. Osun, if you remember, in 2015, the card readers were introduced, and then the card readers was to be the game changer. And the case of Umana, if you remember, he was in APC, the APC gubernatorial candidate against Udom. And then the current governor of, River State, as they paint them, as they paint them in the sweet us krona. That is Wike. Yes. Those two cases were very unique. The Supreme Court, in reckoning over voting, because when the card readers was introduced, the idea was that once the number of accredited voters by the card reader, the number of registered of actual voters exceeds the number of accredited voters by the card reader, there was overvoting. And the Supreme Court said that since card reader was not inherently included in the Electoral Act and the Constitution, and that so you cannot reckon with card reader when it comes to issue of overvoting. And so, even when the number of accredited voters by card reader exceeds the number of actual voters exceed the number of accredited voters by card reader, the Supreme Court said, provided the number did not exceed the number of actual voters, registered voters on the voters register. So in the case of Osun, the BVAS was now introduced, which is similar to card reader. And so what happened in Osun was the fact that the court, the tribunal is saying, that was the APC case, that the card reader records they collected from INEC in filing their petition showed that there was overvoting in about 700 polling units. And what does that overvoting, about 70 polling units, what does that overvoting mean? That the number of accredited voters by BVAS was more than the number of actual voters, even though the number is still below the number of registered voters. But INEC also insisted by tendering an amended card reader BVAS report that the number of accredited voters by the amended BVAS report is within the number of voters is within the number of accredited voters by the amended BVAS report. So, but the tribunal in its wisdom decided to believe the case of the petitioner as against the case of the second respondent, which is INEC in this case.
Barrister.
The question now is, how come the card reader, the BVAS, is having two reports, one for the APC and one amended report? How come they have two reports from the same BVAS? So is there something that INEC is not telling us? That is where the quagmire is.
If you read, just to quickly interject there, because I have done a lot of reading of the judgments, just to interject there. If you read the judgment, you will see that on July 17th, INEC, APC obtained a report from INEC that INEC said was an incomplete, it was a preliminary report because it would take them a few days to finish synchronizing their data. That is, with the actual details on the BVAS machine and what was on their server. Will take a few days.
Let me finish.
Can I finish? Please, can I finish? Please, it's not window dressing what is legal.
Why do you give an incomplete report?
But when he was speaking, did I interrupt him?
Going to use it at the tribunal.
Yeah.
But handle the election petition matter. So you don't give
as have I.
You don't give You don't give an inconclusive
It's not going to
report
work
to
if
a
it's going to
petitioner.
be interrupting.
Yeah,
It's not going to work if it's going to be interrupting.
you know,
I listen to you,
okay, go,
and I'd like to finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, in addition to doing and giving it wasn't an amended report. It was a final report. And they made this known.
Which was different from the first initial one.
They made this known to everybody at every point of the issuance of the report. First report was clearly marked. It was a preliminary report. They said as much. The APC witness who came, expert witness who came to court, actually testified to that effect. 1. 2, not only did INEC do that and give you a complete synchronized report, they brought the BVAS machines to open court and then gleaned information from it to the court and were cross-examined on the information. So it wasn't just a report. The actual source of the information.
So
the BVAS
are you saying the judgment was right?
We believe it was wrong.
The judgment was wrong.
We believe it was wrong.
Yes, Mr. Ono.
Yeah,
Mr. Shoma.
I've represented INEC in so many cases at the tribunal. When a report is inconclusive, and you know that that report is going to be used against you at the tribunal, you don't issue the report, except the report is a conclusive report. You don't issue an inconclusive report to a petitioner who is going to the tribunal and you say, look, this is an inconclusive report. Anyway, go and use it at the tribunal.
So Mr. Oshoma, so was the judgment based on the preliminary report or on the final report?
Now, the question is, you have issued the preliminary report and the court says your preliminary report says that there was overvoting. Now you have brought another report and the court says that second report is an afterthought. You see, INEC is creating confusion here. Look, when you issue reports, you've concluded elections. BVAS are your machines that you have used that are generating reports on the go. And these reports are published on your website. When you bring BVAS to court, they are machines. It is the report that you tender. You do not, the tribunal does not open BVAS to look into it and cross-examine. It is the reports that the BVAS generates that the tribunal looks into, and not the BVAS itself.
So, liberals, so is it was the judgment? Do you think that the judgment of the tribunal was right based on what they got?
What I am telling you, I'm not saying the judgment is right because there is a room for appeal. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the judgment is right or wrong, but I am saying INEC ought not to have. INEC is telling us BVAS is the game changer. If BVAS is the game changer, why do you need to give a BVAS inconclusive report to a petitioner who is heading to court against you to query the election that you have conducted, that there was overvoting in that election? You gave him, and mind you, there is no room for amendment at the election petition tribunal. So you know he's not going to amend his petition. So you gave him an inconclusive report. So if truly that report were inconclusive, what you have done, you have set him up for failure. If it is not inconclusive, what you also have done is to bring a report.
Liberals, because one thing here again is that if you go to appeal, you are not trying the case again. I'm not sure you are able to present any. You are looking at the judgment of the trial court, the court of first instance.
Documents that have been tendered.
Yes. So there is a danger there, isn't it? That's it.
There is a danger.
Because now you are not trying the case all over again. You are going on appeal based on the judgment of the trial court. Now, the question here, for a lot of people who have not seen the judgment, we've been able to cite portion of the judgment. Now, let me read some of the last paragraph of the judgment. Where there was a table as released by the court, which says that there were a total number of 181,540 votes, total number of votes in the identified 744 polling units. And they said there was a 60,000 total number of votes scored by APC, 112,000 as a total votes scored by the PDP. By the time the deductions were made from from EC8DI, it was 375,000. And at the end of the day, he gave the judgment to say, for the sake of emphasis, the total level votes for each of the candidates after the said deduction of the invalid vote is 314,931 for the first petitioner and 290,666 for the second respondent. Now, the court went further to say, consequently, the second respondent did not score a majority of lawful votes at the election. The declaration and return is hereby declared null and void. The second respondent, this is where I find the judgment quite hilarious. The second respondent cannot go lo and buga as the duly elected governor of Osun State in the election conducted on 16th day of July 2022. See Kiss Daniel's song, Buga. Rather, we hereby hold that the first petitioner scored a majority of lawful votes in the said election and is hereby returned as such. And furthermore, the court asked that INEC should retrieve the certificate of return.
Quickly, Seun, I think the tribunal also ridiculed that judgment by even going low to Buga, referring to the dancing governor. We know him as a dancing senator. For me, that's where I say that I will heap all of this blame on INEC. Seriously. You do not, like I have said consistently, you do not generate reports knowing fully well that there is no room for amendments. These reports are going to be used against you at the tribunal. You generate them, you hand them over as armor to somebody who's going to use them against you. You say, go and use. But it is interim. In the course of the tribunal. Meanwhile, when these documents are filed, you have 14 days within which to respond. You have 24 days within which to file. And so at what point did INEC now quickly generate this final report? Is it within these 14 days?
Yes, I would answer your question. Can I answer your question? Can I answer your question? Can I answer your question?
Let's give Liberals just a moment.
Let's answer the question.
Yeah, just
give
Liberals one.
Let me finish.
Yeah, let him land just in a moment. Yeah, please go ahead.
Let me finish. So a report you could not generate within that 25 days, but you could generate it within the 14 days for you to file your own defense to the claim. You are putting both the winner of that election in a quagmire, and also you are putting a big question mark in the election that you have conducted by issuing a preliminary report. You know, we call that election to question. And now the court has relied on the preliminary report. Let's assume that it's a preliminary report. And you now say no.
Yeah.
The court ought not to have relied on a report.
Mr. Oshoma. Yeah. There is a fundamental question here.
Can we clear issues of dates?
No,
very quickly.
Okay.
Because
Aliyu needs to also
these are dates that are included in the judgment. Very quickly. What date was the INEC election? What date was the Osun State gubernatorial election conducted? If I remember correctly, it was conducted on the 16th day of July 2002. Right? The preliminary report dated July 17th was actually issued the next day. If you look at it chronologically on the day as to the dates as contained in the judgment of the court, the comprehensive report was issued 10 days later on the 27th of July. All of this before APC had filed this petition. All of this within the 24 days that you specified.
No, give us the dates the petition was filed.
I can check. I can quickly check.
Aliyu, watching to talk. Just a moment, please.
You see, we can go on and on about all of. Between the two of them, we have laws. You know, the Electoral Act 2022 clearly states the Section 51(2) talks about overvoting. You know, and we have bimodal voters accreditation system. That's the BVAS. If we look at those tables where all of the affected polling units are tabulated, you find out that some of the polling units, you know, the overage in some of the polling units was as low as 1. And if what I'm hearing from the PDP is that the the BVAS had not synchronized. I mean, are you saying that the BVAS being the point of capture, the front system, synchronizing in that case of one vote differentials now, synchronize all the other records but one vote in that polling unit? Then the highest number of difference is 400 in one of those polling units. Are you saying that does BVAS select what to synchronize? Oh, if you are saying it's a matter of date, it's automated. If you are saying it's a matter of date, how long after election do we have to wait to have a complete? Because it is very critical. The electoral law is the law, and it says that you cannot have more votes than the accredited voters, and the system for accreditation is the BVAS. So if the report from the BVAS said 10 voters were accredited, and you have 11 votes, you are telling me that the BVAS synchronized 10 and chose one vote to wait for 3 weeks, 4 weeks to synchronize?
So you think something is wrong there?
Exactly. So simply, it is what it is. There was a case of overvoting, and my party was right to have identified those 744 polling units where there were cases of overvoting, and we simply asked the court to apply the laws of the land.
What
we
is
simply
the law
asked
of
the
the
court
land?
to apply for the law of the land, the electoral law, which says whenever there is such case, confirmed case of overvoting in a polling unit, the result be cancelled.
No,
that takes
what
us
section 51 subsections 3 and 4 actually tell you is that if there is an established case of overvoting, you, one, cancel the results, and two, order a rerun election.
Is that what the electoral law says?
Yes, it's in section 51, subsection 4 specifically, that once there is the possibility of the result affecting the outcome of the election, and the tribunal so it sets for you a condition precedent showing that there is the possibility of the outcome affecting of the results of the cancelled or the total number of votes in the cancelled areas affecting the outcome of the result, then you order a rerun election. Now, what do you see? When you are calculating and you are cancelling more than 100,000 votes, and the margin between the winner and the loser is 20,000 votes. Winner and loser, in quotes, is 20,000 votes. We've seen INEC do this on several occasions. We've seen the electoral. We've seen the
margin is smaller than the number of cancelled.
Significantly smaller than the number of cancelled votes.
And has been used to order
in fact,
an inconclusive election in
the
past.
inconclusive election that they used to steal the mandate of the Osun people in the last election, it was an inconclusive declaration of results that they used.
Gentlemen, and
how are we now here and we're having a conclusive and we're
I mean,
no, I know it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
So the excuse that
there's an
used
overall picture. That's what you're pointing
is the
out.
overall picture.
Let's get something here. And the question we're asking is, can we trust the BVAS? Because now we thought that.
Trust INEC? Can we trust INEC?
No, but INEC introduced the BVAS. So, and we thought that the BVAS is supposed to bring some sanity. Let's get.
INEC is issuing 2 reports on one machine. 2 reports on one machine. So you now have the machine. It's like it's like beans. It takes time to cook. And meanwhile, it is this same machine that generates
I'm sorry,
results
but if
that are
people,
uploaded automatically. So you will need 10 days for
people. I'm
to
sorry,
generate a report.
No, but the truth about it.
Let me bring in Renu here. Just
technological.
Yeah.
So can I quickly?
Please, Renu, please come in. Yeah. Can we trust?
Yes,
do you have a
can you give
fear?
me just some minutes.
Please go ahead, Renu.
To also clear up some. When I'm not here, to interfere in the PDAPC affairs because they are twins.
No, they're not.
The same party.
No, they're not.
And I don't want to, dabble into their affairs. And I'm also not here to, drop lies and garnishments like my fellow guests on the show. I'm here to talk about why I prefer a certain candidate. And I'm not a member of any political party, and that has to be corrected. But then, the statement of my fellow guests cannot go scot-free. To not be good in the 21st century with access to data and information, that we allow peddlers of bad governance to blindfold us again. Let me start from the spokesperson of the APC. It is not about fighting for democracy, right? When you say your candidate has been the best governor since 1999, that is wrong. Lagos is not where it is today because of one template. People who have never lived in Lagos cannot come and tell us what Lagos is. The lies that were shared during Buhari's campaign of him being a reform Democrat, fighting insecurity and corruption, are still the ones they are peddling today. So the peddlers of lies are back again after wasting 8 years of our lives at the behest of terrible governance. They cannot defend their manifesto. Their candidate cannot attend debates. Their candidate is clearly showing signs of dementia and incoherence, yet they want to sell us ancient relics of the past. Why is their candidate not talking about continuity if the present administration, which he campaigned for, has done well? Why are they promising us renewed hope? Is it because the present administration has made us hopeless? Secondly, to my other co-fellow from the other party, he talked about how Peter Obi has not been involved in pushing economic reforms. It is very wrong. Apart from Peter Obi being the state governor, he has acted as honorary special advisor to the ex-president Goodluck Jonathan on finance, and he was not even a member of his party then. He was a member of the presidential economic management team in May 2015. When we talk about business administration, about how Peter Obi has chaired several establishments, he was also a member via the chairman of the Board of Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. He was the chairman of Fidelity Bank, chairman of Guardian Express Mortgage Bank, former chairman of Future View Security Limited, Paymaster Nigeria Limited, Next International. I can go on and on about how many companies Peter Obi has actually chaired. And you are talking about how he has not been involved in pushing economic reforms.
Sorry, Shehu, I have to respond here.
Let me finish as well. It's performance in office, because if we start mentioning, the achievements, we'll not leave here today. It's performance in office in Anambra State, because Mr. Libero said Peter Obi has no antecedents. I find that very intriguing when we are trying to lump Amala and Semo together. You are trying to join this candidate with the popular two major candidates from the PD-APC twin parties who have clearly failed Nigeria. So it's not okay, to try to lump them together and
I would
say,
like to
they are all the same, they should get out. It is important to say that the performance of Peter Obi while he was in office in Anambra State, the performance was regarded by many Nigerians as outstanding. Many Nigerians began to put attention on Anambra State because they saw what he was doing in Anambra and they were like, how is Anambra, performing tremendously, even more than other states? It's economic management of the state. It brought Anambra from the bottom to the top. Even till today, Anambra is still ahead in education, above many other states that are supposed to be even doing better than Anambra State. So how do we now say, he has not performed, he doesn't have any achievement, so let us lump him together? I just think those are the things that I
important
need to
very
correct.
quickly.
It is
Very quickly.
Yeah. Reno,
let's quickly do some differentiations. Having spent a considerable amount of his experience, as you recounted, at it being involved in governance in PDP at certain levels, Reno, one of two things is going to be established here. One, the only way you can say that, Peter Obi performed at these national levels, that you say that he performed at, is that a PDP government gave him the opportunity to do so. So when you come onto national, hold on. Did he take the opportunity? Where did the appointment come from?
Can there be decorum?
Hold on.
Can there be decorum?
Down.
We gave you time.
Can
you tell your guest online to let other people speak? We let her speak. Can she let other
just a moment.
Can they stop this online bully tendencies?
Just a moment. Reno,
did Abga hold on?
This is the typical online bullying tendencies that is display all the time.
Let me finish. Reno, I'm going. No, you are not. Hold on. I'm going down the route. Can you wait? No, but you see, this is the problem. Is this? Yeah, you will not. You have to at some point.
In the bag were gotten because of Peter Obi's achievement.
When you finish, Reno,
people voted for Atiku because
governance is not a looter. You have to wait and do governance properly.
But then
we can leave the aluta, this aluta that you are doing here. We can leave it alone.
Reno, just a moment. Let me allow you to learn.
I will finish. Yeah. Don't do the aluta.
Reno, just a moment.
Governance is not about aluta. You are interrupting the process.
Yeah.
I will tell you this.
Go ahead.
He was in APGA. Yeah? Because of the demonstration of commitment to good governance, PDP appointed somebody from APGA. If you say he performed as chairman of SEC, it was because a PDP government appointed him so. If you say he performed as a, if you say he performed as a member of the National Economic Management Team, you're doing so. If you say he performed as a member of the National Economic Management Team, it is because PDP let him do so. So when you come back and say PDP failed, one of two things are established. It is either he failed when he was in office, or you are looking at Nigerians and you are telling a bald-faced lie. Which is it?
Sorry, let me quickly address whoever that person that thinks she knows Lagos and some of us don't know Lagos. I grew up in Lagos from 96 to 2010. I worked with MTN Nigeria for over 10 years, joining them in 2005 and resigning in 2015 to run for election. So I can clearly tell you that I have lived in Lagos and have well traveled. I brought up a lot of regions in the eastern on V-Mobile, then Project Rose, under the Project Rose back then. So after establishing this background, that we're not talking on emotion on sentiment, but on facts. You talk about how Peter Obi was a part of economic team in government. Now let me remind you too, as a member of the economic team, Peter Obi addressed the press and said our economy was doing well when a few days later the head of that economic team, Dr. Konjo-Iweala, came out to say exactly opposite of that. At the time, you talked about how well Peter Obi performed as a governor of Anambra State, and I'm telling you that between 2003 and 2006, the former governor Ngige raised the IGR of Anambra State from 50 million a month to 450 million a month, a whooping 800%. At the time where the federal allocation was meager, the best federal allocation ever received by Anambra State was between 2006 and 2014, which coincided with the period Peter Obi was the governor, meaning he received about 850 billion naira then as federal allocation. But Peter Obi was only able to raise the IGR of states, of the same Anambra State at that time, by a meager 18%, from 450 million to 600 million in 8 years. Something Ngige did with less money for 800%. You come out and tell us about this thing as though we are all newborns or Gen Zs who don't have history. I will go back to it that Peter Obi only became popular after he climbed the platform, a program called Platform, and marketed himself. The only good thing you've heard about Peter Obi in the whole of Nigerian politics has been from the mouth of Peter Obi. Peter Obi have consistently reeled out fake figures, and I can tell my two contestants, my two speakers in the building, that if these people think they were good enough, or the party APC had done so badly in 2019 that they were together to rescue this country, the very fact that between Atiku and Peter Obi cannot put aside their differences and work together to rescue Nigeria shows that their intentions were never clear, shows that they never have view of what is going on. I mean, I can take the words of the lawyer who, when he was making remarks about the candidate, he made clear remarks about Atiku. But as we speak today, there is nobody more important than your principal. Obasanjo cannot vouch for Atiku as we speak today. He regrets ever working with him. And you come on to tell me to take the same word of that Obasanjo on another untested fellow, who has actually been tested but failed.
I will quickly clarify.
Anambra State is there for us to look at.
You are speaking about the economy. You are speaking about the economy.
There are indices. There are indices.
APC should not be speaking to us about the economy. The APC should not speak to us about the economy.
Now let me talk about
3 recessions. We are coming here. You are giving us 3% growth, the best that you have given to us for 8 years. We have come out here. You people have, you see, our farms are the least productive they've ever been. We are the most insecure we have ever been. We have the worst access to education that we have ever had, the worst access to healthcare that we have ever had. There's a way that you should also have
the national terrorism. The international terrorism index does not reflect what you just said. Before this,
you should calm down. You should calm down.
Just a moment. Just a moment. Yeah, since you guys spoke a bit, Reno, go ahead.
So it should be a very interactive segment.
Reno, go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay. I could give you the mic. Please.
All right, go ahead, Liberals. Yeah.
Sorry. Sheung,
Yeah.
see, let's stop all of this back and forth. Nigeria, we say, though tongue and tribe may differ, in brotherhood we stand. But as we speak now, we are saying that we should forget tongue and tribe and stand in brotherhood so that Nigeria can move forward. He cannot move. It is not possible. Look, as young people, we have seen successive governments fail.
Have you given up on? Have you given up on Nigeria?
Look, Afe Babalola, SAN, he's seen many wars. He told us, he said, look, let's go back to where we missed it and start from there. Every election year, we come here, we insult ourselves. We say my candidate is better than yours. And then after the election, we start another round of insult, wailers and hailers. And we do that until another election year comes, we start another round of battle. While our local governments are the least functional today, irrespective of the party, be it ABGA, be it PDP, be it APC, be it Labour, they don't even have a local government, not to talk of they are going to do it differently. And yet you have governors across board who are not different from what we are complaining of. All of them, we're not even looking at them. Nobody discussed them. Showing the structure is defective. As young people, let us look at this structure and say you cannot consistently do the same thing and expect a different result.
Is there any hope? Is there any hope in 2023? Because a lot of young Nigerians are listening and are watching now, and the essence of this conversation is how can we make Nigeria better by the votes of Nigerians? Do we have that opportunity in 2020? It's just 20-something days.
Let me quote Afe Babalola again. As we speak, Nigerians are hungry. Forget sentiment. It is the man with the highest box in his pocket that will still win the election. Because look at the Naira redesigning. Sheung, I just told you just now, it is not in existence in ATM. If you go to the bank, they give you the same old note, but you can buy it in parties. They are selling it in parties. Bundle of 200 is 30,000 naira. Bundle of 500 is 60,000. Bundle of 1,000, it's maybe 120. They're selling it in parties. That is not federal government. So if the politicians want it, they will get it. In fact, the
liberals,
take it to them with bullion power.
Yeah. So I'm coming.
Why don't we as people? Let me tell you, this current government is owing a debt of 77 trillion naira. So the next government will inherit a debt. So you're already in deficit, 77 trillion naira deficit. And then you also will need to pile up debt. You tell us you want to do structures, you want to build whatever you want to build. Why don't we find a way, even now, and say, let us go back to regional government, so that Nigeria will be less cumbersome.
But can we do that? So liberals, just a moment. There is one question that is critical here today.
We don't need building castle in the air. Let's talk about what is on ground. What we have on ground? What we have.
Look, liberals, just a moment. You liberals is thinking that maybe this election of 2023 may not even be necessary, considering that we have a defective system. But the question, I'm going to come to a question, but let me allow Reno you wanted to speak, but you allowed.
No, please, ask your question so I can.
Okay, so
answer them.
Our big question on our hand today, just a moment, please, is this: my very lovely speakers here. Can we trust the BVAS? We thought that BVAS is going to give us a good outing at the election, but the judgment from Osun Governorship Tribunal, does it give us a problem that we need to look into? Does it make us feel worried? Are you worried, Reno, for example?
Thank you very much for that question. And before I answer, I'd just like to say that even my fellow co-guests are here campaigning for my candidates. The past few minutes for them to sell their principals. They've been only Peter Obi.
I know, please.
The
It
one
was
who's
Sheung
supposed
that
to be
stopped
selling
me.
his
Oh.
candidate-
It was Sheung that
the one
stopped
who's
me.
supposed to
Oh.
be selling
If
his
they leave me
candidate-
1 hour now,
Let me
we'll be
talk.
talking
No,
about my
let me talk.
candidate. Oh.
Am I allowed to even
Sheung is you I
respond?
blame.
Please,
Oh.
please,
It was
no,
stop
no,
me,
no,
oh.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. You know, the one that is also defending his candidate here, his candidate may be busy sleeping somewhere, or accusing Buhari of not allowing him to become president. So, but then
Can you grow up and be matured in conversation? Can you grow up and be matured? Can you grow up? You belong to that age. Grow up.
You don't tell me to grow up. This
You
is a
need to
public
that,
platform.
exactly.
Please
So
be quiet
speak
and
like
let me respond to the
So,
question.
guys,
you know. I mean, you see the platform that
Interrupting me for crying out
platforms
loud.
like this is a
You're a
leveler.
gentleman.
Platforms like this is a leveler.
Let's
You don't. You need to have manners when you talk in
No,
public.
let's be
Don't tell
civil.
me to
You
have
talk
manners.
about-
Don't tell people
Peter
to
Obi, as
have
far back as
Hold on.
2013, was sleeping in a meeting with Abga meeting. He was. Oh,
Please.
I mean, sleeping is human. I sleep.
Don't speak to people like
So what
that
is
on the
wrong with that?
public
So
platform. Who do you
speak
think
on
you are?
issues.
Ali.
Speak on issues
Just
and don't come up
No,
here
no,
and
no.
don't
Ali,
interrupt me,
let-
please.
let's
and
calm
expose
down.
your lack of home training all on air.
No, please.
Come on.
Don't let us go that far.
Speak
please,
on
please.
issues and
let's
stop being
let's
very
on
petty and
the
childish
issues.
in your ways.
No, let's stay on
Have
issues.
manners.
Ali, please, no, please.
Uh-uh.
Reno, please, let's stay on the
That's
issues.
colorless of you
Please,
for
no,
crying out loud.
that's
You
okay.
have displayed all
Guys,
of that.
no,
all day.
Ali,
You
don't let us
displayed
go
all
there.
of that.
No.
No, I am a
no.
politician.
I don't understand.
No,
She
no,
claimed not being
No,
a
Ali,
politician.
Ali, can
I mean,
we just be calm?
Imagine.
Reno, please go ahead.
Politicians are
No,
friends.
no,
They are
no.
not quarreling.
Look,
Please
the
don't
thing
quarrel.
is that
I
hold
am in
on.
communication with
Hold
Peter
on.
Obi.
Hold on,
I
Ali.
am in communication with him.
What is important?
People who don't
what
even
is-
know nothing
just-
are here
just-
making noise.
Can we
Can
calm
you
down?
imagine that?
What is important is that this generation must bring some
Just
kind
like
of change
Exactly.
into our conversation.
Exactly.
Reno, please go ahead.
To be
Ali,
honest.
just
No, but
let's
you need
calm
to
down, please.
caution her to
Thank
stay
you.
on issues. If we are to throw jabs, load,
Like candidates
we
like
can go
support,
there.
calm down,
We all
Ali.
can
Ali,
do that.
Just
My
let's calm.
generation, we grew up on neighborhood
Don't be
derbies.
rude, though.
We can do
Your
it.
generation
So, but you
is
see all
different.
these
Don't be rude,
children,
though. Just
they
let me
need to know
answer the
when
question.
we have issues on, but let's stick to issues.
Ali,
Nigeria is at
Ali,
stake here.
It's okay.
Then you don't tell people
Reno,
not to have
Reno,
manners.
please go ahead.
You tell people at home, don't come on public platform and come and tell us to have
No,
manners.
let's stay on
When
the
you
issues.
display
Let's
that
not
in
use
public,
those
I will
language.
address you in public.
No. Don't let us use
I
this
will
language.
address you in
Can,
public.
No,
can the
no,
more
please,
peaceful,
I'm begging
can
you.
the peaceful
Guys,
members of the
guys,
public,
can we
speak
please
about
calm
it?
down? Just a minute.
Childish. I mean,
Reno, no, it's okay, Ali. Can we go ahead, Reno, please.
Don't
Let-
bring it on a public
let's
platform.
temper with
Thank you.
the words,
I think
please.
that to answer the question, can we trust BVAS? I will go with Mr. Shoma, in his question, that can we actually trust INEC? Because they gave us BVAS. They asked us that Nigerians trust in this technology and this technology will deliver. The INEC chairman has repeatedly, tried to elicit confidence when it comes to PVC collection, BVAS, ABIS, everything, that Nigerians, don't worry, these elections will be fair and credible. So the question is, can we trust INEC? Because what we are seeing clearly from Osun State, it's becoming diabolical. So the question is not, can we trust BVAS? Because it's whatever INEC gives Nigerians that we're going to vote with. The question, like I said, I'm going to go with Mr. Oshoma, is can we actually trust INEC? This is 1 day to the deadline. I learned that they've extended it, but then clearly across the nations as well, people have not been getting their PVCs. People have registered. INEC has complained people are not registering. People have gone to register. So where are the PVCs? INEC cannot produce these PVCs. So many PVCs not found, omitted PVCs, blah, blah, blah. Too many issues with INEC, especially when it comes to these elections. There's a lot of incompetence that have been seen across board when it comes to INEC operations. So the question is not about BVAS. The question is about INEC internal structures themselves. Can we actually trust INEC? Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Reno. For anybody that is not seeing the news, the fact is INEC has increased the PVC collection by another week. I hope that people will use the opportunity. The same question I asked, can we trust the BVAS?
I would think that this is the place where, at the moment, everybody should focus on asking INEC to do something. We need to see your systems out in public. Conduct a stress test. Conduct an integrity test that shows us very clearly what the process for verification is, what the process for accreditation is, what the process for casting the vote, the ballot is, what the process for counting is, what the process for transmitting the results from the polling unit to the back-end server, and then that whole process of production of results. Show us in public, right? Conduct a stress an integrity test.
But INEC has
Now,
come
hold on.
On my program on Channels TV, which, in fact, tomorrow's program, I will want everybody to watch at 8 o'clock. It's going to be we'll break a lot of things down. INEC has shown that they've shown in public, we've seen it used in Ekiti and Osun elections. We've seen the BVAS used, no, it wasn't used in Edo, but it was fundamentally used in Ekiti and Osun election, predominant.
We're now seeing.
But we thought that it was foolproof.
We're seeing an
errors
issue here,
such as overvoting.
We're seeing an issue here. INEC, in its submissions to the tribunal, said these issues ought not to exist. Right? Like was claimed in the court, and like was claimed elsewhere. Right? We have now seen issues where a court is saying, INEC, we're not taking your word for it, we're going to go our way. What INEC must do now, between tomorrow and the election, is close that gap so that opportunity ceases to exist.
Now you have come to my point.
That's what INEC must do, so that we cannot go one way or the other.
Because it's scary. If a lot of people, the reason why a lot of people want to go and vote, and I've heard a lot of young people say, this time around, they think that election will count and they will go and vote is because of these BVAS. But if this is coming up, like you said,
at some point, please, when we finish this segment, can we go back to talk? Because I have a lot to say about my candidate. That's what I came here to do.
Go ahead, Ali.
All right.
Can we trust the BVAS?
Now, before I answer that question, I would like to just establish some sort of background to it. The reason for introduction of BVAS in the first place is to forestall falsification of votes, falsification of accreditation, which usually bring about more votes than accredited. And if at the point of at the collation point or at the voting point or polling unit, there is no declaration of result at the polling unit without stating the number of accredited voters. So what I think this case, I have every reason. I'm a scientific person, I'm a technology person. I've been able to analyze election results from presidential election results from 2011 to 2019, and I can tell you between 2015 and 2019, there's a lot of integrity in it. We know, like any other system in the world, it's not perfect, but I like to believe that there's been a sincere attempt from the umpire to ensure they use system and technology to bring about integrity in our electoral process.
All right.
So one question I think they need to answer from all we have,
which is INEC, right?
Yeah, all we have answered. How long exactly does it take for the BVAS to synchronize all records and transmit safe to the server?
That's a big question. I've been in election. Just a moment, Liberals. Just 1 minute. I'm seeing Dr. Bayonle here. I'm seeing Chima here on Twitter Spaces. I'll allow Chima and Dr. Bayonle to also come into the conversation. Chima, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So the topic on discuss today is, can we trust the BVAS for the 2023 elections? Lessons from the Osun Election Tribunal. And before I arrive at my answer, may I please refer to the judgment, the two judgments, the lead judgment and then the dissenting judgment. First, there is this issue on discourse, is that there were two reports issued by INEC, one on July 17th, that's a day after the election, and then one on August 27th, that's several days after the election. And then the question now is, the one on the 17th, in fact, the two reports acknowledges that there were overvoting. One of the reports acknowledges that there were overvoting in 744 polling units. Yeah. That's the report of July 17. Yeah. And then the report of August 27 acknowledges also that there was overvoting. Now it is no longer 744 polling units. It is now only 6 polling units. So the question is this: why is the BVAS report of July 17 fundamentally different from the BVAS report of August 2027? And to answer that question, Mrs. Abimbola Olagunjoye, who was put on the spot, who was PW Principal Witness 1 for the Principal Witness 1, yes, who is a Deputy Director in ICT, made a lot of things, fumbled a lot of things because she couldn't answer straightforward questions. And then to have you answer this question, the two judges in the lead judgment now try to answer it. And they said this way in their judgment, that the said conduct of the respondents, I'm quoting the judges now, the said conduct of the respondents, especially the first respondent, which in this case is INEC, amounts to tampering with official records. And then they said that the conduct of the first respondent, which is INEC, in the said election under consideration, has produced multiple accreditation reports, contrary to its avowed declaration to conduct free, fair, and credible elections on the basis of one man or woman with one vote. So the said conduct of the officials of the first respondent, remember the first respondent is INEC, as shown in this judgment, makes the proactive decision of the bed in the novel Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe very instructive. In the said novel appear these words: "Man has learned to shoot without missing. She has also learned to fly without perching." Consequently, and this is where I will end it, to forestall manipulation of the BVAS, this is not my opinion, this is the opinion of the two justices. Consequently, to forestall a manipulation of BVAS machines in the conduct of elections in Nigeria, the first respondents in INEC, the presiding officers at the polling unit, and other key staff of the first respondents should have on the vest worn by them during the conduct of the elections an electronic device embedded on them, which will have audio, video, and other data and information transferable to a server domiciled with either the headquarters of the police force, night concert, or the office of the National Security Advisor, independent of INEC. That data stored at that server in any of the state offices will be a resource material for the investigation and possible prosecution of any infraction that may occur in the use of BVAS machines at the polling unit level during the conduct of the elections. So it was the opinion of the two justices that INEC fundamentally tampered with its own reports, because you have two reports saying that they were overvoting. But the first report says this overvoting occurred in 744 polling units. And then after you've done what is called synchronization, and by the way, when this woman was asked to determine the process of synchronization, no straightforward answers were provided. So, and then in the dissenting judgment, because what you had now is that INEC provided the panel with two documents, and then the two justices took one, and the dissenting justice took another one. And the dissenting panel said, oh no, I'm going to rely on the second document as against the first document. So the question is, can we trust BVAS? And this is not something I've been pursuing today. I have had a history with BVAS, I've had a history with the Abyss, I've had a history with the, and I have been calling, including with some other Nigerians, for these systems and processes to be subjected to independent multi-stakeholder audit. Everything Nigerians know about the BVAS is what INEC says. The BVAS has not been audited by any third party. Again, apart from fundamentally compromising the data, which is what the judge is alleging in his judgment, you have the issue of possible technical suppression of votes, because BVAS was used in the Soko Delta South, BVAS was used in Anambra elections, BVAS was used in Ekiti and Osun. Nobody knows the success or the failure rate of BVAS.
Yeah.
Because we're no longer using incident forms. We're no longer using incident forms. Before now,
thanks so much, Chima.
If the BVAS fails to authenticate you,
yes,
if
Chima,
the BVAS fails to authenticate you, you're not allowed to vote.
All right.
Now, the question is, what the BVAS is measuring is the number of successful accreditations.
Yeah.
The BVAS is not measuring the number of failed accreditations. And when you go to the Abyss, 15% of the people that were disqualified by the Abyss came from two regions, the Southeast and the South-South. The average rejection rate for the nation is 22%. The national average is 22%. The regional average for 4 regions is 17%. But for the Southeast and the South-South, the Abyss rejected 35.2% of all the people in the Southeast and the South-South who applied.
So we should be asking a very critical question. What I mean, like an audit of what?
I have written an op-ed titled "8 Critical Questions."
Can you send it to my DM, please, Chima?
Yes, I will.
Fantastic position there. But I guess that we have one or two persons. For example, I would love to hear from Dr. Ademola Bayonle, who contested in that in election in Osun State. I think he contested in that election too. I'd love to hear from him. Dr. Bayonle, if on Twitter Spaces. Do you want to speak now?
Yeah, I mean, I came up because of the title, but it seems that there's other campaign plans going on.
We had two topics actually. We had two topics about who is best for Nigeria. Then can we trust BVAS? So So yeah, can we trust BVAS
okay.
is the second topic. So you can go ahead, please.
That's the one we see on Twitter space, because I don't understand PDP saying that Labour Party is an extension of PDP and everybody arguing. I don't think. Well, I'm
I
more
didn't say
interested
so.
in the bigger situation.
I didn't say so.
Well, it's
PDP
okay.
did not say
Let's go
so.
back to the topic. Yeah.
Go ahead. I mean,
I would
you
like
were
to go
a
back to the
governorship
topic.
candidate, Dr. Banyale, isn't it?
Yes.
So what's your submission
so
about the outcome of the judgment? Can we trust the BVAS?
Okay, yeah, and I think a lot of people have actually pointed out to the right direction. I think it's more of INEC. I don't want us to like judge technology in isolation. Tech is also powered by humans. They are not like they don't by themselves function. So we have to actually look at INEC and their officials and ask them a whole lot of questions. But of course, the judgment is very messy because it's really glaring. The Electoral Act also empowers INEC. Actually, section 62 subsection 2 says the commissioner shall compile, maintain, and update on a continuous basis a register of election result. So in that section, it means that there's a possibility for them to continue to synchronize. And I think it gives them 14 days ETC. But what we will probably be asking questions about is that where did they release or why did they release the July 17 results to the petitioner, which should not, and what is the process of releasing result? I think it's more of a judiciary process. Unfortunately, it's botting on BVAS itself. I can tell you the word on the ground is that people are trusting BVAS. People are they are voting, like you have said, because they think that there's something BVAS is bringing extra. There's a confidence that BVAS is bringing, and I don't want us to lose that in the next 25 days. It is not, but by itself, it is not the alpha and omega. There are people that operate BVAS. Just yesterday on the Twitter space, some of the adjunct staff was totally messing up how they should vote. And INEC also does some jobs. They actually call people, including candidates, including ad hoc staff, for training. Maybe they don't do enough of that, but people still don't get it. You cannot, in some, they have said it over and over, you cannot vote, no one can vote without validation or authentication by the BVAS. But some people, maybe because of pressure or because of whatever in their polling units, they go ahead and still make people vote. So that is why we see some of this overvoting. I mean, we all know that when some talks show up at your polling unit and they say, if you don't allow us to vote, your left hand will be gone. And all these things. And now, before it goes to the ward first, and from the ward it goes to the local government, from the local government it goes to the state. There's so many level of vetting going on there. But now it's electronic transmission. So the next place you're going to find that result is probably at the state level, which has eliminated. Initially, if you get to the ward and you see some overvoting as a coalition agent or whatever, or coalition officer, you can return that result and say, no, go before your polling agent signs it. So I don't think we should lay blame just to not move us round in circles on BVAS and just quickly start saying BVAS is the devil. Yes, I think we have raised two questions here. Probably on the judiciary side, how long does it take to synchronize? That's number one. Number two, I think that the hands that are actually operating this BVAS machine, they are not doing the best for us. And INEC needs to come out straight. But please, I think to the general public, we should still rely. All our elections in the past 4 years, they've improved, and BVAS is an improvement. These political parties are still getting the system, but I think we've done it pretty well, a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Just a moment. There is that's Dr. Banyale. Just a moment, because I want it to be interactive. There are a lot of people who have been watching and listening. Sub-Zero is also on Twitter Spaces. Sub-Zero, if you can just come in with your intervention quickly.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. I listened to Mr. Chima, and I think he spoke very well about what the issues are. And Mr. Bayonle, I think he spoke well too, and he's trying to just encourage people. But I think I'd like to go back to what Ibrahim Osun said. And at the end of the day, everything lies with INEC and lies with the security agents. Because Mr. Bawani said for BVAS, our technology to work, we have to put into consideration people who will be operating, who will be using this technology, because they can manipulate things and do a lot of things. So, as of today, do we have enough security agents on ground to man our elections? No. So that means there is still tendency for violence, and BVAS is not the cure for violence. BVAS is not the cure for voter suppression. BVAS is not the cure for vote buying. So BVAS is one thing, but other key things too are there that we need to consider. At the end of the day, it's a 50-50 thing. For Nigeria to win, everybody will have to do their best. But are people willing to do their best? No, because people are partisan. So for me, I don't see much on BVAS changing anything. Honestly, I don't see that today. Because if BVAS can influence the election, if the wrong use of BVAS can influence the election result in Osun State at 749 polling units, where you have at least 3 INEC staff, where you have the polling officer, where you have the supervisor, and these things happen. INEC needs to come out and give us a position. We are saying all of these things. We are making all of these conjectures. We are making all of these insinuations. Where is INEC? What are they telling us as of today? INEC is not speaking to us. So we should put the pressure on INEC. We are only working with partial information, half information. INEC is the one that sees is the door that sees the inside and the outside. They should make us know their position. You should be able to defend your own results, your own exercise in the court. If you're not able to defend it,
Sub-Zero. Now, a major question here is that can INEC be able to resolve whatever be the gap between now and 25th of February?
In the dissenting judgment, in the dissenting judgment, the answer to your question was given. Let me read a portion of the dissenting judgment. The judge says, the point I am making is that the BVAS machine itself is the primary source of the data to be used in determining what exactly transpired at the polling unit on the day of the election with respect to the accreditation of voters. Exhibits RBVM 1 to 199 and RBVM 1 to 51 are the machines themselves which were tendered and by the record of the tribunal were admitted and taken as demonstrated. There was a demonstration of the results. And then it goes further to say, the petitioners are not saying that the entries on the BVAS machines are not the same as the entries in Exhibit RWC. Their grouse is that since Exhibit RWC came from the first respondent, it is all that should be taken. The judge then goes on to say, you know what? Discountenance the two reports. The BVAS machines was brought to court. A demonstration was given to us in court, and results were gotten from the BVAS machines. I will trust the results that was gotten directly from the BVAS machine in my presence. It's a very simple thing. If we have a situation where there are conflicting reports, please, can we not just consult the BVAS machine in itself? And in what is very crucial in the dissenting judgment is the judge raises the right position of the law as stated by the Evidence Act. Any evidence that is given and is not challenged is deemed as accepted. Evidence was given from the BVAS machines stating that these were the results.
So my colleague is standing logic on its head.
I'm not standing. I'm standing. No. Unless you are accusing the judge. No. Hold on. Liboros. Please let me tell you what you should not do. What you should do is, are you accusing the judge of standing logic on his head? Because I'm literally reading to you from the judgment. Are you? It's not me. I'm quoting a judgment for you, and you are saying I'm standing logic on his head. I don't understand.
The interpretation you gave.
I am not the one who is giving the interpretation. It's the judge who gave no. Once you take it properly, I will keep quiet. The judge gave an interpretation. I quoted the judge.
That interpretation is standing logic on its head.
Take it with the judge, it's not me.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Liberal. Do you have water close to you?
Sure. Let me read INEC stance.
The BVAS that was used, that was
me?
demonstrated in court, did not capture the votes and overvoting that they are talking about. So, in talking about the overvoting and the voting, what do you rely on? The two reports acknowledge that there was overvoting. The judge now says, yes, it was demonstrated in my front. So are you going to rely on the result that was produced in your front? Is that the result of the election?
Exactly.
The result of the election is what was produced from the BVAS. And what was produced from the BVAS is questionable. That is the issue. It is not, let's not begin to follow hook, line, and sinker sentiment expressed by a judge in his judgment. The question here is simple, it's very clear. Very clear. In even the card reader, for example, INEC will tell you that card reader can capture, but at the back end does not register. I like the fact when was it Dr. Chima who said, look, or you even said it there. Let us conduct a stress test on these same machines. INEC came to us in 2019 saying we have a server. After election, INEC said they don't have a server. Now, INEC says BVAS is not, we're not saying BVAS is not good. Yes, it has improved one way or the other. Also, if it is not interrogated, also it can be used to manipulate the process from what Osun has shown. So that is why we're interrogating BVAS now and saying, what must INEC do? BVAS will only capture those that were accredited by BVAS. And so now, those that were not accredited by BVAS, and you're saying they voted, that is where the problem is, that they voted. Even the BVAS itself has said, look, there's an overvote in the reports. So what do we do? The court also has acknowledged the fact that INEC, one way or the other, human beings are prone to tampering with these machines. So this same machine is the machine that we're saying we are going into election with. What is the guarantee that people cannot buy INEC staff and tomorrow they will tell you, oh, they'll give you a first report and then tomorrow come with another report to say, oh, look, this is the final report. The first one was preliminary. So we should eliminate all of that. That is what I'm talking about.
I think there's something, we may not agree on this platform on so many things, but I think there's a lot of, one thing that everyone here today has agreed on is INEC needs to come with some explanation. INEC needs to guarantee that this thing is foolproof. INEC needs to show some level of audit. And I want to promise everyone listening, and whatever you may be listening, that I promise that I will make INEC come. I will invite INEC on my program on Channels TV within the week. It might be tomorrow, it might be next, but there must be a conversation around what happened, because we saw what happened with the card reader machine. We thought that it could do just about anything in 2015, but it came out that there are 2 or 3 governorship election judgments that the Supreme Court and the court gave different judgments on the position of the card reader. We saw the judgment in Rivers. We saw the judgment in Lagos and in some other state. The case of BVAS, we need to see how far BVAS can help us. And I want us to wrap up somehow. And let me begin with Reno, and give us your final thought on where we need to go from here. In fact, people now have another 1 week window to collect their PVC. I don't think that this should dampen anybody's morale to go and vote. We still need to go out and vote. But where do we go from here? Your final thought, Reno.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for doing this program. It's just important to also reiterate that paid political jobbers should not be allowed to bully people on public platforms. Please warn them not to do that again, especially at you. My final thoughts, on the program. I think that for me, the most important thing for us to consider is that with our vote counts, I think that's one of the things that is forefront on Nigerians' mind. Will our vote count? Will INEC make our votes count with their incompetence, despite asking us to trust in BVAS, Also, there are a lot of fears about these elections. One, we've talked about its complicity of INEC, especially when it comes to electoral manipulation. The state of insecurity in the country cannot be swept aside. How do we ensure INEC officials and citizens' safety as well, with all the insecurity all over the country that the present government has refused to fix? How do we ensure that people are not being attacked, at different polling units or all over the place, in the nation plagued with insecurity? This could also lead to poor voters turnout. Remember, I think it was in 2019, only 35% of registered voters turn out to vote. We cannot celebrate that as our democracy, because it could also even affect the legitimacy of government. How are we sure that we will even get a higher turnout, or it will be a lower turnout as opposed to 2019? So the insecurity could affect our elections. Also, with Nigerians, I think Nigerians' ability to elect leaders with brains, not people who are seeing solutions as problems and problems as solutions, because human beings can be irrational. And we know the current political parties, that especially the major ones who have ruled us so far, they're well skilled when it comes to vote buying. In fact, vote buying is already well on the ground right now, with the PDAPC people buying people's PVCs and all of that. So vote buying is also another major concern of mine. Also, religion, ethnic, lines, lack of ideologies, with the fact that we have rising levels of poverty in the country. We could easily have decisions that are influenced by politics of the highest bidder. I think that these are my concerns for the 2023 elections. But then I believe in one thing, and that's the Nigerian dream, that our Nigerian dream can materialize. No, it's not the Japa dream where we are thinking of Japa. It's not also the dream where our politicians are looking for roads or transformer to repair a few days before the election so that they can take photos, where they create a system that does not work, then turn philanthropists. It's not the one where we have political jobbers who are there, just to blindfold people into selling their candidates. It's not also the one where police officers and armies can shoot at citizens and try to cover it up with the help of politicians. I think that my own dream for Nigeria is that Igbo better dream, and that's one thing I'm looking forward to materializing this election. That Igbo better dream where our parents still echo by saying Nigerians will be better one day. In Nigeria where injustice will be a thing of the past, where you and I can live without having to think about jackpot to another man's land, where our best of the best will not have to live to work in other countries, because there's unemployment and underemployment. In Nigeria, where there is quality education and healthcare, where our students will not have to sit at home for close to a year because we simply have an incompetent government in place. In Nigeria, where our votes will count. In Nigeria, where we'll have a government by the people, of the people, and for the people. That's my hope. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Reno. Appreciate your final thought. Aliyu, your final. you wanted to? Okay, go ahead.
I would like to end my contributions here by encouraging a number of things. One, we need to go get our PVCs. I encourage anybody who doesn't have a permanent voter's card to go and do so. Pick it up within the last week if it is possible. As much as possible, pick it up, make up the decision to vote, and then come out on election day and vote for your candidate. We need to ensure a couple of things. One, that when we defeat the APC on the 25th of February 2023, we defeat them by such a substantial margin that nothing will be able to take that away. First things first. Secondly, I think that it is imperative that if we say we want to vote for the Nigeria of our dreams, we should vote for the people who show a clear understanding of what those dreams are and a clear path to achieving those dreams. I will use two examples from the other speakers who have been on this program. Mr. Liberos Oshoma speaks severally about the Nigerian structure not working for the best interests of the largest number of people in Nigeria. And then he speaks and says we need to restructure our socio-political system of governance. There's one candidate who, since 1994, has been committed to the ideal of restructuring more than all the other candidates put together. His name is Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. If you believe that Nigeria really needs to be restructured along to make our government leaner, to make our government more efficient, to make sure that it works for the larger number of people, it is a no-brainer that you should be voting for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Now, in speaking, Renu, who has gained popularity and fame as being one of the frontline advocates for EndSARS, speaks about, ensuring a Nigeria of our dream where there is no, we don't have any of these incidents that we have in the police. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is the loudest advocate for the reform of our police systems. And he says to you that we should amend our constitution to make state policing possible, to ensure that we provide better funding for our police, to make sure that we ensure better interagency relations, to make sure that we have better outcomes, that we produce better equipment for our police. Altogether, making sure that we bring policing to as close to the people as possible to ensure that we have proper police-civilian relations. I will end on this note. We all have some sort of idea of what the Nigerian dream is, but everybody comes to some sorts of conclusions. There's only one candidate that you have had all the other three candidates advocate for on several occasions in the past. His name is Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. He's the most experienced, he's the most competent, he's the candidate that displays the best levels of preparation and displays the best levels of understanding of the issues that plague the Nigerian socio-political space. It is a no-brainer that in our best interest, in our enlightened self-interest, in pursuit of the desire to achieve the Nigerian dream, we should effortlessly, without thought, vote for him. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ilemana Onaja. Ali, you have the
All right.
floor.
I'll start by encouraging every one of us out there. Believers that the Nigeria of our dream is within reach, and it's up to us to get involved and participate. Do not be discouraged by whatever challenges the processes or systems put in place are faced with. Let's understand the fact that we have only been 24 years of consistent democracy, and the best democracy in the world, with over 260 something years, still encounter challenges during their presidential election. The last one. Having said that, I would say this, that the overall challenges we have as a people has been from the fact that governments are not taking closer to the people. There's been the Japa syndrome, and when you look at all of those places people travel to, they travel there because there are infrastructures. They travel there because government is closer to the people. And when you look at all of those contestants at the moment, whose infrastructural renewal plans and programs and execution, for the rest of them, none exist, maybe except for Kwankwaso, who did tremendously well while he was running, when he came back as a second-term tenure in Kano State. That's the only person I can look at after Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who had envisioned a lot of developmental projects in terms of infrastructure. There is no economy built anywhere in the world without infrastructure. I'm as a young man, I grew up in Lagos. I had issues with the police a number of times. I'm aware of police brutality. And then I'll say this again, that RRS was created by Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And as we speak, while they still perform, they remain the only security unit nationwide that has had the least record of malgovernance or abuse of authority or abuse of power. So when we look at infrastructure, we look at economy, we look at taking government closer to the people, he created more local governments. He has always been, the manifesto Renewed Hope has clearly stated that we need to have a central who takes less responsibility for this thing and give more power, devolve more power to the local government. And he has done this while he was local government, while he was a governor. I mean, we have Peter Obi, who was a governor without conducting local government elections. And we have Atiku, who was only at the center to sell all of our assets. I mean, all of those assets would have created jobs, had jobs that were lost, and we lost assets, we lost jobs. And however you look at it, let's look at issues, let's look at competence, let's look at character, let's look at capacity and antecedent, track record. Query any of this. These are let's make informed decision on who we vote for. We all want a country that works for all of us, you know, in the end. So let's make sure that whatever we are making our decision on is not what I or anyone else has told you about. Be learned enough to seek, you know, information. Go back into history in each of these characters and find out. Make sure that whoever you vote for might not be the winner. Make sure that one vote is legitimately and duly earned by that person because you have scrutinized the person's antecedent and you're voting for that person. But most importantly, democracy is the only thing we have. We need to support INEC. We need to do our part, and we need to challenge them to be better. And it will take a little time, but we'll get to a point where we'll actually be proud of our country and everything in it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Ali Audu. Let me allow Liberus Oshoma to give us his closing thoughts.
Yes, I'm sure. Thank you. I would. My call is on INEC. Nigerians are building hope. You are extending collection of PVC, and you know people are agitated. Nigerians want to see if they can truly make Nigeria of their dream. Election is the only sacrament that allows individuals to participate in government. And yes, year in, year out, INEC come with innovation, and people build hope in those innovations, only for the same INEC to scuttle that same innovation that they have, you know, introduced. And then we now want to, another year will come with another innovation. We started with the direct data capturing machine, and then subsequently the card readers, and card readers came, now BVAS. And then the same BVAS is giving us the same problem that we have had consistently. So, and consistently, we have also said the resident and electoral commissioners in INEC, that wreck over time have had cause to wreck our elections. So let this be a departure. It is not still too late for INEC. It is not enough to tell us this is how this machine works. It is not enough. We want to know at the end of the day, the back ends, how long does it take for you to synchronize information garnered from your same machine? You said this is the information garnered from this machine after the election, a day after the election, but you say it is temporal report. Why issue out a temporal report that people are going to use against you when you know that that report is not final? Why now come later to say, oh no, this is a final report? Wouldn't that cast doubt in the mind of a would-be observer to say, you called it a temporary report because you want to leave room for subsequent manipulation? Because what the report has given me today now is the same thing it would give me even 3 months later, because the machine had concluded the election. So let INEC come out to answer all of these questions so as to consistently build confidence in the people. It is not enough to say extend collection of PVC. Already with this judgment, people are demoralized. INEC need to raise that morale again and help people trust in the process. And the only way they can is to allow people interrogate these processes, and then we can subsequently trust it. Otherwise, that same document, that same technology will get to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will fling it through the window, and we'll be back to square one again. Let INEC not allow that to happen.
Well, what a day, what's been a conversation. If there's something that our democracy does for us, I think is this idea for us to have independent minds and be able to speak our minds. Well, Election is one way for us to be able to speak our minds and be able to express our views to the kind of people that should be leading us. And I must sincerely thank you, Aliyu Audu, Ilamana Onaja, Rinu Ojuala, and Laborers Oshoma, and some of our friends who've joined us on Twitter Spaces, on Facebook, on Instagram. Thank you so much indeed.
Show quickly,
Yeah.
show. Please, can these two panelists that were quarreling, can they just apologize to each other and shake hands across so that people will know that it was just...
Would that be a virtual handshake? I think the gentleman should be the one to apologize to the lady.
I'm not sure. Aliyu is a fantastic person. Rinu is a fantastic person. But people share.
She called me a political jobber.
No, but let's let him go.
Hold on.
Let him go. When I was working for democracy.
Hold on.
No, Aliyu, let's let him go.
Aliyu,
Sherry, you were here when I was scrutinizing my political party, the APC, for internal processes.
Let's let him go.
Lot of identity people who create identity on crisis.
Let us let him go.
Can I?
Hello.
Let's let him go.
Rinu, over the course, Aliyu, hold on.
This is not about snatching ballot box.
Now, no, Rinu, you are crossing several lines. Rinu, you are crossing several lines. You are crossing several lines.
And she's talking about snatching ballot. Is she stupid?
No, Aliyu, don't do that now. Don't do that. Rinu, you are crossing several lines. You haven't, Rinu.
The word go, she's been using some words that are very unprofessional and immature. But don't bring
I
this
want us
online.
to.
I'm not your younger sister. I'm your co-fellow.
Guys,
hold on.
We need to
an impartial arbiter.
No. Don't let us
You are too irresponsible to be my younger sister.
Hold on, Aliyu.
How dare you?
Let's go. No, don't say that.
You
I wanted us to.
online and you think you can do that to me,
Aliyu, don't say that.
How dare you?
Please.
You barely witness when I took my leaders in the party to clean us for them to do right.
On a public platform.
No,
Rinu, you are
guys,
not.
don't let us do that.
Rinu,
we need to go now.
Rinu, you are the person.
Rinu,
Aliyu, that's okay. Aliyu, that's okay. Guys, we need to go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard submissions from different sides, navigating differences in conversation, especially trying to win others to their side can be quite tasking. But in all of these, if you cannot persuade others before the election, you're definitely still entitled to your one vote. So will you be queuing behind your choice or choices on the 25th of February and March the 11th? If you do not vote, do not complain. Well, I may not agree with that assertion, but that is what some people believe. And I dare say, if you do not vote, well, you do not have the right to complain. But to address the elephant in the room, let's talk about those who are of the voting age but would rather choose watching movies, playing football on the street, or any other games over being part of the change process. I'm also talking about those who would rather do a long thread about bad leadership, governance, or policy in the country than go out to vote. You are concerned about the situation of things in the country, but not motivated enough to change it. You are part of the problem. In that case, let us all be ready to bear the burden of apathy. Let's us imagine being stuck with the wrong person for a term. By any measure, 4 years is a long time. And every election cycle like this one presents us with the opportunity to decide on current situations, our future, and the future of our children. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this conversation. I dare say that Nigeria is the end goal. Nigeria is our uniting force, and we cannot allow our country to go down. Thank you so much. I'll see you again. Join me on Channels Television tomorrow on Sunday Politics at 8 p.m. And I'll see you right on this podcast again next week at 7 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Mike On Podcast with Shayon Okimbaloy. Mike On Podcast for the independent mind.